The stars looked different from the observation deck of the United Nations Space Command headquarters. Commander Ethan Grant stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the unusual vessel descend through Earth's atmosphere. After 20 years in the Navy and 5 in space operations, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Commander, they're requesting permission to land at the designated area," said Lieutenant Kate Miller, her voice steady despite the historic nature of the moment. "Permission granted," Ethan replied. "Let's go meet our guests." The ship that landed on the specially prepared platform outside New York wasn't like anything humans had built. It seemed to bend light around its hull, shimmering like oil on water. When the door opened with a soft hiss, Ethan felt his heart beat faster. The aliens called themselves the Zithri. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with slender bodies covered in pale blue scales that reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. 4 arms and large, deep-set eyes that blinked sideways gave them an otherworldly appearance that no amount of government preparation could have made less shocking. Dr. Lisa Wright stepped forward. As Earth's leading xenolinguist, she had been studying the communication patterns the aliens had sent ahead for months. "Welcome to Earth," she said, making a series of complicated hand gestures that the linguistic team had determined might be respectful. The tallest Zithri moved forward. "We receive your welcome," it said in surprisingly good English. "I am Coordinator Zelix of the Galactic Council. We have observed your world for some time." The revelation that Earth had been watched sent murmurs through the assembled human delegation. Secretary General Howard Ellis stepped forward. "We are honored by your presence. We have many questions." "As do we," Zelix replied. "Your world is unusual." That single word, unusual, carried weight that none of the humans fully understood yet. Over the next 3 days, the diplomats from both species exchanged information. The Zithri explained that the Galactic Council included over 40 intelligent species from thousands of worlds. They had discovered Earth after detecting unusual radiation patterns from human nuclear testing. On the 3rd day, Ethan was assigned to show the alien delegation the United Earth Historical Archives. The massive database contained humanity's recorded history, scientific achievements, and cultural milestones. "This section covers what we call World War II," Ethan explained as they moved through the virtual display. "It was our largest global conflict." Zelix's 4 hands began to tremble slightly. "You destroyed entire cities with atomic weapons?" "Yes," Ethan answered honestly. "It was a dark period in our history." Another Z3, who had introduced herself as cultural observer Nari, moved closer to the display. "And this conflict ended less than 200 of your years ago?" "That's right," Ethan said. "We've had smaller wars since then, but nothing on that scale." The aliens exchanged looks that Ethan couldn't interpret. He continued the tour, showing them humanity's recovery from the war, the space race, climate challenges, and eventual unification under the United Earth government. When they reached the section on medical advancements, Zelix stopped abruptly. "Your species has overcome multiple plague-level events?" Dr. Wright nodded. "The Black Death killed about 1/3 of Europe's population in the 14th century. The 1918 influenza pandemic killed millions worldwide. And the 2037 antibiotic crisis nearly collapsed our medical system. But we adapted each time." "Without intervention?" Nari asked, her voice higher than normal. "Intervention?" Ethan asked. "From whom?" The aliens fell silent for several moments. Later that evening, Lisa joined Ethan in the observation lounge overlooking the alien vessel. "They're leaving tomorrow," she said, sitting beside him. "Much sooner than planned." Ethan nodded. "Did you notice how they reacted to the history archives?" "Like they were watching a horror movie," Lisa agreed. "Especially the parts about how quickly we bounced back from disasters." "Do you think we scared them?" Ethan asked. Lisa considered this. "I don't think it's fear exactly. More like concern. As if they found something they weren't expecting. What neither of them knew was that in the privacy of their ship, the Zithri were having an urgent discussion. "We must report this immediately," Zelix said, all 4 hands moving in agitation. "Patterns. The Council must be informed. Their historical record is unlike anything we've encountered, Nari agreed. Most species that destroy their own cities with atomic weapons don't survive to tell about it. These humans not only survived, but continued developing more powerful weapons. A younger Zithri named Taris, who specialized in risk assessment, displayed data on a holographic screen. They've faced extinction-level events at least 7 times by their own counting. Each time they not only survived, but emerged stronger. The radiation patterns that led us to them came from weapons testing, Zelixi noted, not from energy production or medical technology. Their first impulse was to weaponize their discoveries. And they speak of these events as simply history, Nari added, not as cautionary tales or shameful episodes, but as neutral records of what happened. The Council protocols are clear, Zelix said finally. Species with this profile must be approached with extreme caution. We will need to create a specialized warning entry. The next morning, the Zithri bid their formal goodbyes to the human delegation. Their words were friendly, but their body language remained stiff and cautious. We look forward to continued dialogue, Secretary General Ellis said. This is a historic beginning for humanity. Indeed, Zelix replied. The Galactic Council will be most interested in your species. As their ship rose into the sky, Ethan stood again at the observation deck. What do you think will happen now? Lisa asked, joining him. First contact went well, Ethan said. They'll probably invite us to join their council eventually. I hope so, Lisa replied. Though I can't shake the feeling they were evaluating us somehow. Above them, beyond Earth's atmosphere, the Zithri ship engaged its faster-than-light drive. Inside, Coordinator Zelix was already drafting the official warning to be placed in the Galactic Registry. Humanity, caution level, extreme. This species has survived multiple self-inflicted extinction events and continues to thrive. They view catastrophic conflicts as mere historical entries rather than existential warnings. Their innovation rate under pressure exceeds safety protocols. Approach with predetermined diplomatic procedures only. Direct technological exchange limited to non-weaponizable sciences. Monitor closely. Back on Earth, humans celebrated their new place in the galaxy, unaware that they had just become the subject of the longest warning label in Galactic Council history. 5 years had passed since the Zithri first landed on Earth. Humanity had taken its first careful steps into the wider galactic community, establishing an embassy on Proxima Centauri, the nearest diplomatic outpost of the Galactic Council. Yet, station orbited a habitable moon and housed representatives from 12 different species. Lieutenant Jack Summers adjusted his uniform as he walked through the curved hallways of the station. At 32, he was one of the youngest security officers assigned to the human embassy, but his calm demeanor had earned him respect among both humans and aliens. "You're late," said Dr. Allison Carr as Jack entered the research lab. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she didn't look up from her data tablet. "Sorry," Jack replied. "The Malaysian ambassador wanted to ask about Earth sports. I spent 20 minutes explaining baseball." Allison finally looked up with a small smile. "And how did that go?" He thought hitting a ball with a stick seemed primitive, but was impressed by the statistics involved. Jack leaned against her workstation. "So what's this urgent project you called me for?" "I've been granted access to the station's central archives," Allison said, her eyes bright with excitement. "It's part of my cultural exchange work. I need a security escort to access the deeper levels." Jack raised an eyebrow. "The archives? Sounds boring." "Not these archives," Allison said. "This isn't just history, Jack. This is the combined knowledge of over 40 species spanning thousands of years. No human has had this level of access before." An hour later, they stood before a shimmering door deep in the station's core. A blue-skinned Zithri archivist named Kelmar greeted them with a formal bow. "Dr. Carr, I am pleased to welcome the first human researcher to the Galactic Archives," Kelmar said. "Your species' curiosity is well documented." Jack noticed how the archivist's 4 hands moved in complex patterns as he spoke. He had learned that Zithri hand movements often conveyed more than their words. The archive room was vast, with walls lined with strange crystal structures that glowed with soft light. Holographic displays floated throughout the space. These are knowledge crystals, Kelmar explained. Each contains the equivalent of your entire Earth Internet. We organize knowledge by category rather than by species. What categories? Allison asked. Sciences, arts, cultural developments, and Kelmar hesitated before continuing. Warnings. Warnings? Jack asked. Yes, the Galactic Warning Registry. It contains information about dangerous phenomena, hostile species, and Kelmar's hands moved in what Jack had learned was a pattern of discomfort, potential threats to galactic stability. Kelmar showed them how to use the archive system, then excused himself. I have other duties. Please explore freely within your clearance level. Once they were alone, Allison turned to Jack with excitement. Where should we start? Alien biology? Space travel technology? Let's check out those warnings, Jack said. I want to know what scares beings who can travel between stars. Allison nodded and accessed the warning registry. A holographic display appeared showing categories of warnings from minor caution to extinction-level threat. Let's see what rates as the worst dangers in the galaxy, Jack suggested. Allison scrolled through the extreme caution category. Black holes, radiation storms, predatory space-dwelling organisms. Wait. She stopped suddenly. That can't be right. Jack leaned closer to see what had surprised her. There, listed among cosmic disasters and planet-killing phenomena, was a simple entry. Humanity, Earth. That's got to be a mistake, Jack said. We've barely left our solar system. With shaking hands, Allison selected the entry. A massive file opened, far larger than any of the others they had seen. This file is huge, she whispered. It's bigger than the files on supernovae or plague vectors. The entry began with basic information about Earth, human biology, and technological development. But as they read further, both humans grew increasingly uncomfortable. Human adaptability exceeds all known species parameters, Allison read aloud. Under survival pressure, humans demonstrate unpredictable innovation paths that frequently bypass normal development stages. Jack frowned. They make us sound like some kind of rogue experiment. Listen to this, Allison continued. Humans record multiple near-extinction events as simple historical data rather than existential warnings. This indicates a concerning pattern of risk normalization. Species capable of surviving multiple self-inflicted extinction events display unpredictable response patterns to external threats. They spent hours reading through the file. The Galactic Council had thoroughly documented human history, but from a perspective neither had considered before. Wars were labeled as evidence of aggressive problem-solving. Natural disaster responses were categorized as demonstrations of extreme survival drive. Even human art and entertainment were analyzed for signs of psychological adaptability. Look at this section, Jack said, pointing to a subsection titled Integration Protocols. When engaging with humans, maintain controlled information exchange. Technology sharing must be limited to non-weaponizable applications. Human innovation processes can convert peaceful technology to destructive applications at rates 300% faster than galactic average. Allison sat back, stunned. They're afraid of us. Not just afraid, Jack corrected. They're studying us like we study dangerous animals. Approach with caution. Do not threaten. Provide clear boundaries. As they continued reading, they discovered that the file was updated regularly with reports from various alien species who had interacted with humans. The Melosians noted human physical endurance as concerning. The Varrock had documented human emotional responses as unpredictably varied. There's a whole section here about how we teach our children, Allison said. They find it strange that we tell our kids stories about overcoming impossible odds. Jack laughed, but the sound had no humor in it. So this is why they've been so careful with us. We're not being welcomed into the galactic community. We're being contained. Should we report this? Allison asked. Jack thought for a moment. To who? And what would we say? That aliens think we're dangerous because we survived our own mistakes. That they're documenting our every move as warning labels for other species. It feels wrong not to tell someone, Allison insisted. Let's think about this first, Jack said. This could be useful information. If they're afraid of us, maybe that's not entirely bad. As they left the archives, neither noticed Kelmar watching from a distance, all four of his hands moving in the Zithri pattern for predictable discovery. He updated the human warning file with a new entry. As anticipated, humans have discovered their warning designation. Monitoring continues. Back in Allison's lab, they sat in silence, processing what they had learned. Our whole history, Allison finally said. Everything we've done, everything we've survived. They see it all as warning signs. Jack nodded slowly. We don't record history like they do. For us, it's just what happened. For them, it's a list of reasons to be careful around humans. So what do we do now? Allison asked. Jack's expression shifted from troubled to thoughtful. We make sure we live up to our reputation. News spread quickly through diplomatic channels. Humanity's status as a warning label species became common knowledge among Earth's leadership within months of Jack and Allison's discovery. Some were offended, others amused, but most recognized a strategic advantage when they saw one. President Diane Morgan stood at the window of the Oval Office, looking out at the Washington Monument. At 58, she had navigated humanity through first contact and into the galactic community with careful diplomacy. Now she faced a new challenge. They're both asking for our help, she asked, turning to face General Paul Harrison, who stood at attention despite his 70 years. Yes, Madam President. The Varrock Imperium and the Malosian Federation have both sent requests for alliance. The general handed her 2 data tablets. They're fighting over mining rights in the Cygnus sector near our new colony on Harmony. Diane took the tablets, scanning each message carefully. Neither of them wants our military support. They're asking for tactical advisors? The general nodded. After the warning label revelation, they believe we have special combat instincts. Each side wants us to help them outthink the other. So we've gone from potential threat to potential weapon. Diane sighed. What does the United Earth Council recommend? Neutrality, General Harrison said firmly. But we could offer to mediate. Ambassador Nelson is experienced with both species. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Ryan Nelson sat at a large circular table aboard a neutral station in the disputed sector. To his right sat Olivia Scott, a cultural liaison with a gift for reading alien body language. Across from them, representatives from both the Varrock and Malosian delegations watched with obvious tension. The Varrock were reptilian, with scales in shades of red and gold, and voices that rumbled like distant thunder. The Malosians resembled tall, slender humans, except for their silvery skin and eyes that changed color with their emotions. The Cygnus sector has belonged to the Varrock Imperium for 3 generations, said Delegate Chorus, his scales darkening with emotion. Empty space belongs to no one, countered Malosian speaker Talia. Her eyes shifted to a deep blue. The resources there are unclaimed. Ryan leaned forward. Both of your claims have merit under different parts of Galactic Council law. Perhaps we can discuss a resource-sharing agreement? Both aliens looked at him with surprise. The Varrock delegate's tail twitched. Share? Chorus said the word as if it tasted strange. Your 2 species have different mining specialties, Olivia added softly. The Varrock excel at extracting heavy metals, while Malosians are known for gas harvesting. The sector has both resources. The negotiations continued for hours. Ryan noticed that both delegations watched the humans closely, studying their suggestions with unusual intensity. It was as if they expected some magical solution from the warning label species. On the 3rd day of talks, as they seemed to be making progress, alarms blared throughout the station. What's happening? Ryan asked, rising to his feet. A Malosian aide rushed into the room. Ships have entered the system. They're not ours or Varrock. Within minutes, the situation became clear. A previously unknown species called the Drazari had launched an attack on both Varrock and Malosian ships in the sector. They had been watching the dispute and decided to claim the territory, while both sides were distracted with negotiations. "We're cut off," Olivia reported after checking communications. "They've disabled the station's long-range transmitters. We can't call for help." Ryan looked around the room at the shocked alien faces. Both the Varrock and Malosian delegates were frozen in what he recognized as their species' panic responses. "They're expecting us to solve this," Ryan whispered to Olivia. "This is exactly the kind of situation our warning label talked about." Olivia nodded. "So let's live up to our reputation." Ryan called both delegations together. "We need information about these Drazari. What do you know about their technology?" For the next hour, they gathered details. The Drazari ships used magnetic shields. They relied on energy weapons rather than physical projectiles. And most importantly, they were jamming communications using the station's own equipment. "Here's what we're going to do," Ryan said finally. "We can't fight them directly, but we can turn their advantages against them." The station had been built for mining administration and included equipment yards. Ryan directed teams to modify mining lasers to create a makeshift defense system. Olivia worked with the station engineers to reconfigure the communication array. "If we reverse the polarity of the main dish and overload it," she explained to the confused alien technicians, "we can create an electromagnetic pulse that should temporarily disable their shields." The Varrock delegate watched in fascination. "You devised this strategy in hours?" "It's just problem solving," Ryan replied with a shrug. "When the regular options are gone, you work with what you have." 3 Drazari ships approached the station, their weapons charged. They sent a message demanding immediate surrender of all mining rights in the sector. "Now," Ryan ordered. Olivia activated the modified communication array. A massive pulse of energy erupted from the station, washing over the approaching ships. As predicted, their shields flickered and failed. Immediately, the modified mining lasers fired, not aiming to destroy but to damage key systems. The Drazari ships, suddenly vulnerable, began to retreat. "Send the message," Ryan told the Malosian communications officer. The officer transmitted Ryan's carefully worded message. "This station is under human protection. Further aggression will be met with escalating response. We offer one opportunity for peaceful resolution." The Drazari ships halted their retreat but didn't approach again. After tense minutes, they sent a reply agreeing to negotiations. When council reinforcements finally arrived 2 days later, they found something unexpected: a peace treaty signed not just between the Varrock and Malosians, but also including the Drazari, with fair resource distribution for all 3 species. A council representative, a tall Zithri named Diplomatic Observer Telix, reviewed the treaty with obvious surprise. "You turned a 3-way conflict into a cooperative agreement?" he asked Ryan. "In less than 1 Earth week?" Ryan smiled. "Sometimes fresh eyes see solutions that others miss." Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Olivia discovered a new entry in the Galactic Warning Registry about humans. She showed it to Ryan on her data tablet. "Caution. Extraordinary problem-solving capabilities. When cornered," she read aloud. "Human diplomatic teams demonstrate tactical innovation under pressure that defies conventional response prediction. Historical data suggests that restricting human options increases rather than decreases their solution range. Recommended protocol: allow human mediators full autonomy within safety parameters." Ryan laughed. "They still don't understand, do they? They keep treating our normal behavior like some kind of superpower." Olivia looked thoughtful. "Maybe to them it is. Think about it. We turn our worst moments into stories of survival. We celebrate overcoming impossible odds. Our entertainment is full of last-minute saves and unexpected victories." "So our warning label just got longer?" Ryan asked. "And more respectful," Olivia pointed out. "They're starting to see that our unpredictability can be useful." As their ship departed for Earth, neither human noticed Telix updating the warning registry with one additional note. Tactical advantage. Despite risks, consider human allies in critical situations. Their methods are unorthodox but effective. Restrict only planet-level weaponry. 20 years after first contact, humanity had spread across the stars. 17 worlds and 3 star systems now held human colonies. Earth ships traveled regularly through galactic council space, and humans had become a common sight at trading, hubs and diplomatic centers. Dr. Kevin Harper stepped off the transport shuttle onto Centauri Alpha, the largest diplomatic station in this sector of space. At 45, Kevin had spent half his life studying how different species perceived each other. As one of Earth's leading xenoanthropologists, he had a unique mission on this visit. Dr. Harper, welcome to Centauri Alpha, said a young woman who waited at the arrival gate. I'm Michelle Garcia, Earth Historical Archives. I'll be your guide during your stay. Kevin smiled and shook her hand. Thank you, Michelle. I've been looking forward to this visit for months. Michelle led him through the bustling station. Aliens, of all shapes and sizes, moved through the wide corridors. Some looked almost human, while others seemed like walking plants or floating clouds of gas. Kevin noticed how many of them moved aside when they saw the Earth insignia on his jacket. They still do that, Michelle said, noticing his observation. Even after all this time, most species give humans extra space. That's actually part of what I'm here to study, Kevin replied. How alien cultures perceive humans after 2 decades of interaction. They reached a massive structure at the heart of the station. The Galactic Library of Centauri Alpha housed knowledge from hundreds of worlds. Its crystal spires reached toward the transparent dome overhead, through which distant stars shone. This is our first stop, Michelle said. The library recently opened a new wing that I think will interest you. She led him through the grand entrance and down a series of hallways until they reached a section with the Earth symbol prominently displayed. Above the doorway, words in multiple languages announced, Human Historical Warnings. An entire wing? Kevin asked, surprised. Michelle nodded. Opened last year. It's become quite popular. Inside, aliens of various species moved among displays showing scenes from Earth history. Kevin walked slowly through the exhibits, reading the descriptions with growing amazement. One display showed the Wright brothers' first flight. The label read, Warning, species achieves atmospheric flight to orbital capability in less than 70 years. Technological progression rate exceeds safety protocols. Another display depicted the Apollo moon landing with the label, Warning, species capable of achieving impossible goals when motivated by competition. Note, dangerous resource allocation priorities. Kevin stopped at a large exhibit about the Internet, which was described as caution, information sharing technology that accelerates development unpredictably, cultural contamination risk level, extreme. This is fascinating, Kevin said to Michelle. They've reinterpreted our entire history as a series of warning signs. It gets better, Michelle said with a small smile. Follow me. She led him to a quieter section where several aliens sat in meditation postures before images of famous human innovators like Einstein, Marie Curie, and Steve Jobs. What are they doing? Kevin whispered. It's called channeling the human mind, Michelle explained. Some species have developed rituals where they try to think like humans when faced with difficult problems. They're worshipping our thought process? Not worship exactly, more like trying to temporarily adopt our problem-solving approach. The Melosians even have a saying, when logic fails, think human. Kevin spent hours documenting the exhibits. Each human achievement had been cataloged, not for its historical significance but for what it revealed about human capabilities. Later, they visited the trading hub of the station. Kevin noticed something odd about the merchant stalls. Why do so many of them have Earth symbols, he asked. Human goods command premium prices, Michelle explained, especially art, music, and literature. Alien species find our creative works unpredictable and stimulating. What about our technology? Michelle laughed. That's the strangest part. Most species avoid our weapons technology completely. Too dangerous, they say. But they'll pay fortune for our entertainment systems, cooking methods, and especially toys. Toys? Kevin asked, surprised. Alien children love human toys because they're so open-ended. Most species design toys with specific educational goals. We make toys that can be used in dozens of ways not intended by the designers. At a cafe overlooking the station's central plaza, they sat with drinks that approximated Earth coffee. Kevin reviewed his notes thoughtfully. "It's a strange paradox," he said finally. "They fear us but seek us out. They avoid conflict with us but eagerly trade for our creative works. They've basically turned our entire species into a warning label, yet they invite us to their most important diplomatic functions." Michelle nodded. "I've been the station's Earth historian for 3 years. What I've noticed is that we've become both the emergency option and the entertainment. When everything's going well, we're interesting curiosities. When crisis hits, suddenly everyone wants a human perspective." "Like that situation in the Orion cluster last year?" Kevin asked. "Exactly. When that star started showing pre-supernova instability, threatening 3 inhabited worlds, the Council tried conventional evacuation plans for weeks. When those failed, they finally consulted Earth scientists. Dr. Laura Weiss suggested redirecting the solar flares using gravity wells. The Council thought it was too risky, but they were out of options. And it worked, Kevin said. "It worked," Michelle agreed. "Saved billions of lives." The next day, Dr. Weiss's solution was added to the warning registry as "Caution, Human Crisis." Responses often employ controlled disasters to avert larger catastrophes. Kevin laughed. "So no matter what we do, it becomes another warning label." "I think we've reached a point where our warning labels have become our greatest diplomatic asset," Michelle said. "When I first arrived here, I was offended by how they described us. Now I see it differently." "How so?" "Our history isn't just a record of what happened. To the rest of the galaxy, it's a catalog of impossible problems that were somehow solved. Every time humanity faced extinction and survived, we added another chapter to our warning label, and another reason why the galaxy needs us." As they talked, a group of school-aged aliens guided by a teacher stopped nearby. The teacher pointed at Kevin and Michelle, speaking in a translator-enhanced voice. "And here we see actual humans," the teacher said. "Note their relaxed posture, despite being surrounded by potential threats. This demonstrates their continuous threat assessment capabilities. They appear harmless, but galactic protocol reminds us that appearances can be misleading." Kevin raised his cup in a friendly salute to the young aliens. They responded with various gestures of respectful caution. "How does it feel to be a living warning label?" Michelle asked with a smile. Kevin considered this. "Strange, but not entirely unpleasant. I've studied hundreds of alien cultures, and I've never seen any described quite like humans. Most species are defined by what they are. We're defined by what we might do in a crisis." "The galaxy's emergency glass," Michelle said. "Break in case of disaster." That night, Kevin added a final note to his research. "Humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization may not be our technology, art, or even our diplomacy. It's our reputation. We are the species that survives the unsurvivable, thinks the unthinkable, and solves the unsolvable. Our warning labels aren't just cautionary tales, they're instruction manuals for the impossible." The alarm sounded different from any Christopher Reeves had heard before. As senior diplomat for humanity at the Galactic Council headquarters, he had experienced many emergency alerts during his 15-year career. This one made his skin crawl. "What's happening?" he asked his aide, Sam Wells, who rushed into his office with a pale face. "Emergency council session," Sam said, his voice shaking. "Highest priority. They're requesting Earth's representative immediately." Christopher straightened his uniform and followed Sam through the grand hallways of the council station. Other alien delegates hurried in the same direction, their various appendages and communication organs showing signs of distress that Christopher had learned to recognize over the years. The council chamber was massive, with seating for representatives of all 47 member species. Today, the usually orderly room was in chaos. The central holographic display showed something Christopher had never seen before: massive dark shapes moving against the backdrop of the galaxy. High Chancellor Xerix, A Zithri who had risen to the council's highest position called for order. His forearms moved in patterns of extreme urgency. "We face an unprecedented threat," Xerix announced when the chamber quieted. "Long-range sensors have detected multiple entities approaching from beyond our galaxy's edge. We are calling them void harvesters." The holographic display zoomed in to show better detail of the entities. They resembled massive black clouds with glowing cores, each larger than a small moon. "These entities consume stellar energy," continued Zelix. "They envelop stars and drain them completely, leaving dead systems in their wake. They have already destroyed 3 uninhabited systems at the galaxy's edge. Their trajectory brings them toward populated worlds." A murmur of fear rippled through the chamber. Christopher listened intently as various defense experts presented their assessments. The news grew worse with each report. "Conventional weapons have no effect," said the Varrock military representative. "Energy weapons are absorbed. Physical projectiles pass through them." "They ignore communication attempts," added the Malosian delegate. "We believe they may not even recognize our existence as meaningful." For 3 days, the council debated possible responses. Christopher participated actively, offering Earth support for various proposals. But each strategy was rejected as ineffective against such an alien threat. On the 4th day, High Chancellor Xerix called Christopher to a private meeting with the Council's inner circle. "Senior Diplomat Reeves," Xerix began formally, "the Council finds itself in an unusual position. Our conventional approaches have failed. We have exhausted all standard protocols." Christopher nodded, sensing what was coming. Another Council member, a crystalline being named Sharn, spoke next. "We have reviewed the Galactic Warning Registry entry on humanity extensively." "I see," Christopher said carefully. "And what have you concluded?" "That we need human thinking," Xerix said bluntly. "Specifically, we need the kind of impossible solutions humans seem to generate when faced with extinction." Christopher tried not to show his surprise. For decades, humanity had been treated with careful diplomatic distance, respected but contained. Now the Council was essentially asking them to take the lead. "I'll need to bring in our best people," Christopher said. The Council agreed immediately. Within 24 hours, a team led by Dr. Nicole Warren, Earth's foremost astrophysicist, and Commander Alan Fletcher, a veteran of the Mars rescue crisis, arrived at the station. Nicole studied the data on the void harvesters intently. Alan mapped their movement patterns and energy signatures. After 2 days of work, they called for a full council meeting. "The entities are drawn to stellar energy," Nicole explained, showing complex calculations on the holographic display. "They follow specific patterns based on energy density." "We can't destroy them," Alan continued, "but we might be able to redirect them." Their plan was radical: create artificial supernova triggers that could be remotely activated. These would generate enormous energy bursts that would attract the void harvesters away from populated systems and toward empty regions of space. "This is insanity," objected the Varrock representative. "Intentionally creating supernovas. The collateral damage would be catastrophic." "Only to uninhabited systems," Nicole countered. "We've identified 17 candidate stars in unpopulated regions." "The energy release would be controlled," Alan added, "and we'd only trigger enough to create a path leading the harvesters away from the galactic core." The debate lasted hours. Christopher watched the council members struggle with the concept. To them, deliberately causing stellar destruction to prevent greater destruction seemed paradoxical. Finally, a senior Zithri archivist spoke up. "I would like to reference the human warning label in the Galactic Registry," he said formally. "Specifically the entry titled Human Crisis Response Methodology. It states, when conventional methods fail, humans frequently employ controlled disasters to avert larger catastrophes. While this approach defies standard risk assessment, historical data confirms an 83% success rate." The chamber fell silent. Then High Chancellor Xerix raised all 4 hands in the gesture of formal acceptance. "The Council approves the human plan," he announced. "With the following notation for the record, When conventional methods fail, consult the species with warning labels. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Nicole and Alan worked with teams across multiple species to create and position the supernova triggers. Christopher coordinated diplomatic clearances for Earth ships to enter restricted space. When the system was ready, the Council gathered to witness the activation. Nicole took a deep breath before pressing the command sequence. Across the display, artificial supernovas began to bloom like distant flowers. The energy surge was exactly as calculated, massive enough to attract the void harvesters but controlled enough to limit damage to the uninhabited target systems. Slowly, the dark entities changed course, following the energy trail away from populated worlds. The plan was working. 3 months later, the crisis had passed. The void harvesters had been successfully led to the galaxy's outer rim, where they eventually departed into intergalactic space. The cost had been high, 17 star systems destroyed, but billions of lives had been saved. In the aftermath, Christopher was summoned once more to the council chamber. There, High Chancellor Xerix presented him with a formal document, the Moiger. Council has created a new classification for humanity, Xerix announced. It is now part of the permanent galactic registry. Christopher read the document. Ultimate warning. In case of existential threat, remove humans from containment. Stand back. Observe. When all logical options fail, human ingenuity succeeds. Species capable of controlled catastrophes to prevent uncontrolled ones. Handle with respect. Later, alone in his office, Christopher reflected on humanity's strange journey among the stars. They had begun as a curiosity, became a warning label, and now were recognized as the galaxy's last resort against the unthinkable. His communication system chimed with a message from Earth. The United Planet Council had approved funding for a new initiative, training specialized human teams to respond to galactic-level crises. They would be called the Glass Breakers after the old saying, break glass in case of emergency. Years later, after Christopher had retired, he visited the new wing of the Galactic Museum on Centauri Alpha. There, a simple plaque caught his eyes. It had been written by an alien historian attempting to summarize humanity's role in galactic civilization. Human history, not a record of events, but a catalog of what works when nothing else will. Christopher smiled. The galaxy had finally understood something about humanity that humans themselves had always known but never articulated. Their greatest strength wasn't technology or even courage. It was the ability to look at imminent destruction and somehow find a third option. In the centuries that followed, as humanity spread further among the stars, their warning labels grew longer. Each new crisis survived, each impossible problem solved, added another entry to the galactic registry. And slowly, what began as caution evolved into something else, a strange form of respect. Human history wasn't just recorded anymore. It was studied, referenced, and in times of greatest need followed. The species that had been labeled dangerous had become indispensable, not despite their warning labels, but because of them.